Welcome everyone to our weekly top 10 list. For our tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube, Francesca joins me every week to break down something, sometimes politics, sometimes not. Today, the top 10 comedians. And we've got a comedian on the show. It's the perfect synergy.
What up?
Are you excited? Were you excited putting together the list?
No, I've actually felt incredibly nervous and put upon.
Oh, okay, well, well, let me make it even worse because this list for me is gonna be a little bit different. Normally, we do 5 each, 5 to 1, and then that's it.
Yes.
In this, I am going to have some honorable mentions, but also some explanations. I don't wanna do that first because I don't want you to know what's not gonna be on the list.
Oh,
so that
okay.
will come after.
Okay.
I do want to give a caveat first though. I know, thankfully, like Francesca, I know a good number of stand-ups. I'm not putting any stand-ups I personally know on the list. So their absence from the list is not,
Doesn't
saying
mean
anything about
we're
what they
not
do.
also amazing.
You're awesome. It's just that I would be too biased in that.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I'm choosing not to do that.
You're pulling the
That
Chris
said.
Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo thing.
Exactly. But there will be, as I said, some other stuff later on. But for now, we can get into. First of all, did you have anything that influenced how you chose this? Anything that went into your decisions that you want to make clear so people understand your list?
That you asked all time, not current, like
Sure.
not like
Yes,
right
all
now.
time.
Who are the newest or the people
Sure.
you like the most, or up and coming? Up and coming is very different. Folks you haven't, top 10 comedians you never heard of or you need to
Ooh.
know, I think is different.
Then both of those I want to do later. You would
Yeah.
have to do the full 10, but I want to learn more about these upcomes anyway.
Well, and we can, and I can put them in honorable mentions. But as Sophie, the producer, said, we should hurry up before one of our comics gets canceled.
Okay, good point. Good point. That's funny. Okay, then why don't we start with your number 5?
I mean, crap. I go
See,
first.
This is what happens when you hang with comedians. Yes.
Okay. Numero 5, cinco. I know how to say 5 in Spanish. No big deal. So one of my favorites is a comedian named Maria Bamford, and she has many great albums out, and she also like has a show on, I think it was Hulu, called Lady Dynamite. She has incredible characters, is so funny, like struggles with mental illness and makes that part of her show. She's opened one of her shows that I saw live, and she was like, one time my parents dragged me to the movie War Horse. This might be your war horse. Because she isn't for everyone.
Too.
She's great delivery, she's got great characters, she's so silly and she's funny, and she also like manages to be like thoughtful and sweet and like says good interesting things and has interesting takes, but is just like sheer joy and hilarity. So I love Maria Bamford.
She's very funny. My number 5 is most are being chosen for their straight stand-up ability, but that is not the only form that comic work comes in.
Joe Rogan.
No. My number 5, I had to put on here just because she has made me laugh as much as anyone else, basically. I am putting Cecily Strong on the list. I don't know her stand-up, if she has stand-up. What?
You're kind of flirting with the rule skis here. This is
she
stand-up
does comic sketch work. That
and
is,
you want to, never mind. And
whatever you're thinking is true for literally everyone on my list. Okay, fine.
Really?
I'm gonna switch it out then, and I will stick to the rules. I have an easy solution. That will be an honorable mention now. My number 5, and I went back and forth with this, is going to be, and I'll explain why it was taken off, is gonna be Ali Wong.
Okay.
So the reason I was hesitant to put Ali Wong on this is I like Ali Wong from 2 Netflix specials, 1 movie, and 1 episode of Top Chef. And that is arguably not enough to say, but she's been great in all of that. Her first, Baby Cobra, is awesome. So funny. She's got this very unique sort of character, this very sort of like really confident delivery that I really like. She's very funny. and she was good in that movie on Netflix. I just haven't seen her in as much stuff. Whereas with Cecily Strong, I've seen her in like 1,000 episodes of SNL, but apparently it's not allowed. So I've been overruled by comedy queen.
I will accept Ali Wong, and I agree with you. She's wonderful, and she's worked very hard. And so I think that there's definitely lots of clips if you want to search for them. But she blew up. So like,
Baby Cobra was huge.
Blew up. But yeah, it's easy to think that that person, a lot of stand-ups, you don't see the work that they've put in for years and years and years and years and years. And then you're like, well, this person came out of nowhere. And the reality is they didn't. They were around, they were working really hard, and then they finally got a break. So yeah.
What's your number 4?
Okay, number 4 is going to be, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, number 4 is gonna be early Dave Chappelle. I have to say early because I'm not a transphobe and I really don't like his new stuff. There's some funny bits. I understand you have to be edgy. You don't have to punch down that much. And what I love about early Chappelle, including the Chappelle Show, is how much it was punching up, talking about issues like racism, classism, and also being incredibly funny and sort of that perfect mix of like the medicine and the sugar going down at the same time that you don't even realize that you're sort of learning and understanding. And it was just so good. And another comedian, this guy Curtis Cook, had a tweet once where he was like, I love how Dave Chappelle like fled all the way to South Africa only to now become the guy he was fleeing from. And in like, sort of hearkening to the moment where he like left the Chappelle Show because he felt like people were not understanding the like irony and the satire, and that there were a lot of like white bros going like, I'm Rick James, bitch, and he was like, okay. And now he's sort of just embraced his douchebaggery status and like has lost his edge. I just think he's lost his like edge. But early Chappelle, unbeatable. Unbeatable.
Well, I don't think a lot of people dispute that addition to the list. My number 4 is very different in terms of his comedy. And this guy, I listened to his specials, of which he has like at least 5 or 6 many times. And for me, I discovered him on XM, one of their comedy things, like right after he died. So like it kind of like affected me more because I never got to appreciate him when he was alive. And it's a very different sort of comedy, but I think that John Panette is so funny. Are you familiar with John Panette?
Not really, actually.
So John Panette was, he was a very overweight comic who talked about food and his struggles with his weight. You might know, the Seinfeld finale, the Good Samaritan? He was the Good Samaritan in the Seinfeld finale. Anyway, he had a lot of specials. He had a very devoted fan base. It was not hard-hitting political comedy. It was comedy about food and touring as a comic and international stuff. It was just very funny. And it's like, I have another comic like this. I can just put it on in the background and it's just funny and happy and it's not weighted down by all the world and everything. And he was very funny and he regrettably, tragically died very young. But he was a very funny comic going back a long time. A little bit of his very early stuff, kind of Asian stereotypes, which is unfortunate, but that was, anyway, most of his comedy was not anything about that. So I'm just putting that out there.
There are those sort of like very talented and sort of apolitical, usually white male comics who just are like, a warm fuzzy blanket over you. John Mulaney is someone who's like that, who is incredibly talented. But yeah, just not very, doesn't have really surprising takes, not very edgy, not super my like what I love, but I absolutely respect and like the guy is a genius. Which is why obviously, and I guess this is, I don't know what order this is in, but Chris Rock is my 3. I think Chris Rock is still good. I think his specials like Bigger and Blacker, Bring the Pain, 96 and 99 are once again classic, legend, funny from start to end, can watch it back a million times. And his just delivery, like as a woman on stage, sometimes you want to make yourself a little smaller. You don't want to be like intimidating. And sometimes, and for me personally, I love just like that Chris Rock energy, just that pacing energy, just back and forth pacing, like utter confidence, owning the entire length of the stage, and just like, and the bits that are just like stuck in your brain that you'll never forget. So, and he's still good. Like I like Tambourine. I like some of the stuff that he's done lately. I've always found him in the darkest days of the Bush administration. He also came out with a special that was right on and critical. So I feel like he's never missed the mark. And also has been a huge commercial success. Again, walking that line, love him.
Yeah, you're totally right about like owning the space too. Like he's very much like a rock star, basically, like utterly confident and comfortable on stage. My number 3 is a throwback. I think that she is one of the most naturally funny people in stand-up comedy history. My number 3 is Joan Rivers.
Yes.
I just think that Joan Rivers, I watch her old stuff sometimes and it's so endearing and self-deprecating. There's just something very naturally funny about her. Like I know that she's doing prepared material, but I feel like she could just talk and she'd make it funny. Like she's, I'm sure one of the biggest influences on like The Marvelous Miss Maisel, but like she actually was like that. It wasn't just a scripted TV show, which makes it even more impressive. And so Joan Rivers, like I wasn't a fan of like the Fashion Police stuff or the more recent stuff, like Spaceballs, like when I kept out with her. But her old stuff I think is so funny. So anyway, Joan Rivers, I think that she's a classic.
Absolutely groundbreaker too. It's just so effortlessly funny and also kind of like a see you next Tuesday, very proudly so. And which is great. And I love that. Okay, number 2. There's so many. Number 2 is someone who when I watch her, I immediately like need to go away and write for like an hour because that's how inspiring she is. But Michelle Wolf is wonderful, and she's a great stand-up. Are you mad that she's not on your list?
I'm gonna talk about Michelle Wolf, but okay. I'm just so pleased right now. I'm so happy that she's your number 2.
Yeah, I mean,
tell me more about Michelle Wolf.
Well, look, she does political stuff, but she also has like a solid hour on like relationships and babies and being a woman and you know what?
And otters.
Yeah. She is fantastic. And she I do think that her show that was canceled on Netflix really tried to lean into her strength, which was stand-up. And I'm not sure that always doing topical stand-up as a Netflix show really can work. I think it's difficult. I think good stand-up takes time, it takes practice, it takes, the jokes are unless they're sort of late night monologue throwaway jokes, it's hard. So I don't feel like that show cancellation was about her. I feel like it was about the format. Anywho, I digress. I also think she's incredibly smart and can just powers through it. I think I saw her do almost 2 hours. She went long and was crushing. Comics.
You saw her in person?
Yeah. I saw her at the Punchline in San Francisco, and she, comics can also often end a little early if they're kind of feel the crowd getting tired, They don't always do, some of them power through, but you sort of end early. She did not, she ended strong. And then I squirreled away and had a glass of wine and started writing furiously because that's how much she inspires me. So I love Michelle Wolf.
I don't have her on my list mostly because I've seen even less of her than Ali Wong. But her White House Correspondents thing was, I think, the best one. I think it was the best.
Yeah,
it was great anyway. Her special, I think on Netflix, is awesome. I don't know why more people don't talk about it. It's so funny. I loved her Netflix show. I was so disappointed when it was canceled. It was different. I liked it. She's she's just awesome. I can't wait to see more stuff from her. But anyway, my number 2 is again very different. Mine is the ultimate version, I think, of what you were talking about the generally white male comfort comic.
Yes.
And far more critically successful than John Panette is Jim Gaffigan. I did not listen to Jim Gaffigan until like 4 years ago. I'd never heard anything from him, but I have now watched each one of his specials 10 times probably, just on loop. It's so funny. It's just stuff about Hot Pockets and stuff. It's just sometimes I don't want political comedy, and he is just very funny, super self-deprecating. And he's been to the studio a couple times, which is nice. He's very funny. I very much like him.
Hell yeah.
But that's my number 2. Who did you put above Michelle Wolf?
Should we do runners up before we do number 1? No.
Sure, yeah. Feel free to do some runners up. Yeah.
Obviously, Jon Stewart is not on my list, but I loved his stand-up, and I currently love his stand-up. I don't think he is the warm blanket, white man to make you feel comfortable, but I like that he was speaking uncomfortable truths back in the 90s and was like struggling to get a break. I love Jon Stewart. I think he has changed the entire game when it comes to comedy, but I did like his stand-up, but I know he's not like known at number 1 as a stand-up. I love Bill Burr. I love Rory Scovel, you might not know. Judah Friedlander, Beth Stelling is an awesome up and coming. Natasha Leggero, and then her husband Moshe Kasher are wonderful. Like those are some runners up. There's so many other folks that everyone should know about. But of course, the king, the one who takes it for me is Mr. George Carlin.
This is your number 1?
Always and forever. Number 1, George Carlin. Took a while. I like political comedy, obviously. Took me a while to like get it and understand it. And sort of like initially when you're exposed to Carlin, but you're not like that political yourself, you're like, why are you so mad about things? And then when you start to like live in the world and wake up, you are like, oh my God, Carlin is speaking to my soul, and just a master of language, master of just a master of the craft, master of like being able to like not care whether there wasn't laughter or applause or whatever, but just kind of go, be in his own zone and crush it. Even the stuff that he did when he was old is good. And his life story is fascinating, and his struggles with like addiction, and then where he, coming from like, like the kid in Brooklyn who used to hang off of like milk trucks on his like skateboard or whatever, not a skateboard, whatever they had, roller skates maybe. And he did the like traditional comedy, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, like 60s comedy. And then transitioned and just became like who he was, which was like a searing political commentator who criticized the left and the right and didn't have room for any BS. And like, I admire that so hard. And he's excellent. He's excellent, and is able to talk about things like capitalism without saying the word capitalism. It's just like talking about stuff, like one of my favorite bits, like a house is just a place for your stuff. It's just your stuff with a roof on top of it, and then he goes on and on and on. He's a master. I love him.
He is great. He's not my number 1. He is obviously a legend, though. I was telling Francesca before this. A lot of people can tell you like all like the awesome concerts they've been to, and like I haven't. I've been to like Pink Floyd, Earth, Wind and Fire, Busta Rhymes. That's literally the only concerts.
Ooh, pretty good ones though.
But that's it. But for comedians, I've been to some of the big ones. I've seen George Carlin in person, and he was very funny. He's not on my number 1, even though I love so much of his stuff. He's had good appearances in movies, and I love how he did politics and society. Not specifically always politics, but like society.
Yeah.
But for me, his stuff is very classic and memorable, but I never found it incredibly funny. Like I always found it to be more interesting, thought-provoking. I actually feel much the same way about Chris Rock. I've watched Chris Rock stuff over and over and over and over again. I think he's like the classic 90s comedian, but I never found it laugh out loud funny. It was always more clever, like it was a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, no.
This is hard.
I love Carlin. I love Chris
hard
Rock,
disagree, but no,
okay.
yeah. There's yes, okay.
Okay. Anyway, some runners up first. Well, apparently Cecily Strong, who we can't put on for a similar reason. Now I'm glad I didn't even try to make this case. One of the people who works in comedy that I love the most, including yesterday, is John Oliver, but I don't know his stand-up, so he's not on there. And I don't love him mostly for the humor anyway, although I do think he's funny. John Mulaney, I'm too new to John Mulaney to put him on the list, even though I think he's hilarious. Michelle Wolf, if there was like a 6, might be the number 6. Growing up, I really liked Brian Regan, and I got to see Brian Regan in person once. I haven't liked his more recent stuff though, and I've kind of moved on, but I loved his stuff for years and years and years. And so he was definitely up there. But my number 1, now I feel a little bit bad about, is, who do you think it is?
I'm bracing myself. I don't know, but I hope it's a consensual choice.
Oh no, it's not that. He probably would be on the list other than that, but mine is Dave Chappelle. And it's not, there was no question. There was never any question. I was also lucky enough, I did see Dave Chappelle in person. There is nothing in my life that has been as funny as that night in college. Seeing Chappelle.
Oh, in college? Okay, cool.
He did a full, I don't know, hour, 90 minutes. I have never seen him do any of that material anywhere else. It is nowhere. And I want to find it again because I've been sore from workouts. My stomach has never been as sore as the day after that Dave Chappelle thing. My abs were shot. He was so funny. I've loved him since the late 90s. I liked the Chappelle show, and it was funny, but honestly, I like his stand-up more than the Chappelle show. Yeah. That said, yes, in the more recent stuff, if I had 3 wishes on a lamp, I would ask him to please never do content about the LGBTQ community again. Just stop.
That's so true.
I know that you think you have to prove something, but you don't. You really don't. You got to stop.
It'd be like number 1, socialism. Number 2, I don't know, like an endless cup of coffee. Number 3, that Dave Chappelle stops doing comedy about the LGBTQ community.
And I get it. He is who he is because he does whatever he wants about whatever he wants. I cap out there though. But that said, I think quite a bit of his more recent stuff has been funny. And I think maybe we disagree about this. I think he's the most talented comic. Like the level of thought that goes into his stuff, except about that. The way he crafts jokes, the way he delivers stories. Like I think lots of comics do stories like as their means of tying jokes together. I think he just does it so well. He's been so funny for so long. It's been tainted a bit, as with the other guy that arguably should be on my list because I did see Louis C.K. once and I've thought he's hilarious for a long time.
Louis C.K. is hilarious. It's just too bad. It's too bad. He's funny as hell, and he's not canceled. He's fine. He's booking shows. He'll be fine.
I will say that while Dave Chappelle had the funniest night ever, I love Louis C.K. I saw him at the Forum and it was the worst I've ever seen him. It was not very funny. He was clearly just starting to work on that material and it was not great. But
oh damn.
Anyway, Dave Chappelle, it was never any question. Funniest guy ever, funniest night ever. He's amazing. Any others you want to mention?
I mentioned a bunch of them, but I also think someone who is very good is also Neil Brennan, who worked with Dave Chappelle on the Chappelle Show. His stand-up is also really strong. But you're right, Chappelle's got it. It's also he's got a good face for comedy. He's silly. He got a silly face, and he knows it, and he uses it to his advantage.
His early stuff was very silly. Yeah. It was good. Yeah, Neil Brennan's great, and doesn't get nearly enough of the credit for Chappelle's Show that he probably deserves at least some of it. And I did get to see him in Hollywood once. He was very funny. He's been to TYT as well, by the way. Very funny guy. At one point, this is mostly a cell phone of me. There was a period in college where I did really like Dane Cook, and I got to see him in person too.
Sure.
And Daniel Tosh, before Tosh.0, he gave stand up. It was very funny. But that's most of them. There's other people. I find Sarah Silverman very interesting. Jerry Seinfeld, obviously, I really like the show. I've never really liked his stand-up though. But anyway.
By the way, never meet any of these people in person because they will disappoint you, and most of them are creeps. So just FYI.
Including the women?
Probably no, none of the women.
Okay, good.
None of the women.
Good.
But yeah, it's a rough industry. Speaking of needing protections and some sort of labor standards. But anyway, also me. So like look out for my Netflix special once I become pregnant, because I think that's how it works. First you become pregnant, then you get the Netflix special that you do with the baby bump. And so I'm working on that.
Totally. Yeah, no, you deserve to be on here. I've seen Ida perform in person and she's awesome.
Ida's great.
Actually, that just reminded me of Tiffany Haddish. I love her stand up too. I don't know why I didn't think of Tiffany Haddish. Anyway.
Speaking of someone who blew up and like was working so hard. But
totally,
yeah.
Anyway, a lot of other people deserve to be there. Feel free to post in the comments below if you have ideas. Thank you as always, Francesca. Great to have you on.
John.
Yeah. Maybe we'll return with like newcomers or something like that later on, or like
stand-ups you need to know, you've never heard of, but you need to know.
Oh yeah, comics who've passed. Mitch Hedberg. Oh God, so funny. Anyway, okay, thank you, tier 2 and tier 3 members for making this available. Please post ideas for top 10 lists below if you have something you'd like to see. We love doing requests. But until next time, see you later.